morning, hello once again, Baycroft. How are we all? How you all doing out there? It's Friday already, yet the end of another week, steaming our way into the weekend. Hope you're all doing really well out there. Now, I know that for many of you, the most horrible thing about lockdown so far has been having to look at me most mornings, and I get it. Imagine actually being me. But I would like to thank you for sticking with it so far and for helping make Baycroft TV a real success. So thank you for that. Please do stick with it for a few more minutes because we've got Mr. Hanlon coming up very shortly. So you're not going to have to look at me for too long, but make sure you do hang on for Mr. Hanlon because he's got some really important reminders for us as we head into the weekend. Now, when I was looking this week at inventions and things that had occurred on this week in history, two things jumped out. Firstly, on this week in history, Mother's Day was invented. And secondly, the world's first machine gun was patented. Now, the world's most famous and widespread machine gun ever made is the AK-47. And the AK-47 and Mother's Day have something in common, which is probably the dumbest sounding sentence I will say all day, but it's true, they do. The thing they have in common is this: both of their inventors were later sorry that they'd ever invented them. In the case of the AK-47 machine gun, that's quite understandable and obvious. I mean, you would end up hating your own invention. In fact, Kalashnikov, who created it, said that he wished he'd invented the lawnmower. But Mother's Day, that's a little bit more confusing, isn't it? But anyway, it gave me an idea for something that I want to talk to you a bit about in future, but I'm going to need your help. After half term, I'd like to talk about really dumb inventions. So I need your help. I'd like you to investigate really dumb inventions, actual real things that have been invented and that are just dumb. And if there are any that catch your eye, send an email to the Home Learning email address and I will share them with everyone on Baycroft TV after half term. I'll give you a starter as a clue. Go away and look up the toilet snorkel. You'll get the idea for what we're after. Okay, now that's for future broadcasts, but coming back to present day, I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Hanlon, who would like to take some time to remind us about some really important advice.
Thanks, Mr. Mitchell. On Monday, our government announced how we're going to exit from the lockdown. And there were some changes made, but they are very small changes. So I'm here to remind you how important it is to carry on doing some of what we did before. For instance, we've got to keep washing our hands regularly through the day, and especially before and after you go out. So if you go outside, it's important to wash your hands when you come back in and wash your hands before you go out. You may now meet up with one other person from another family. But when you do this, you must still remain 2 meters away from them. So I can now go out and see one of my friends. I can meet up with Mrs. Povey at the park. Hello, Mrs. Povey.
Hello, Mr. Hanlon.
But I can't then go on and meet up with other friends. And I can't meet up with two friends. Just the one friend in that one day. But we've still got to stay 2 meters apart. And we can't meet up with somebody else. I can't meet up with Mr. Mitchell.
Oh!
Sorry, Mr. Mitchell. I hope that's made it clear. Stay safe, everybody. We hope to see you very soon.
You're right, Baycroft. Third day, same set of clothes. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Yes, Mr. Ryan Heaney must really smell after 3 days doing exercise in those clothes. But peel back the curtain a little bit. I'm actually just filming them all in bulk, so you don't need to worry about my personal hygiene. Now, our third challenge, our third stretch for this week, we're going to stand in between a doorway. Okay? Now, we're going to adopt a lunge position. We will have seen this in our video from yesterday. Now, once we're in our lunge, we're going to put our arms against the two sides of the door. Now, what we're going to be doing is stretching out our chest. So this is really helpful after doing some push-ups or maybe some weights, okay? We're just going to slightly lean forward and you'll feel a stretch in the muscles across the pectoral and also across your arms. So your biceps and your triceps are all benefiting from this, okay? After about 30 seconds, you're just going to stop your legs and do it for a little bit longer. Obviously don't push too far forward because then you're going to really strain your muscles. You just want to feel a slight stretch on your pectorals and arms, okay? So once we've done that, you're just going to loosen out, shake them off a little bit, and then we're all done, okay? Well done, Baycroft. See you again next week. Bye.
So your first challenge today is creative. You were so great at sending in your resilience gardens last week that I wanted to give you another arty challenge. So we're going to be making hope jars. Now, to make your hope jar, you need an empty jar. This could be from jam, from mustard, from pickles, any glass jar that you might have in the house. Make sure you ask your parent or carer's permission before using their favourite jam jar. To get started, you need to clean it. So put it in a little bath of warm water and washing up liquid and let it soak for a couple of hours. This will help the sticker peel off easily. You might find you're left with some sticky glue on the outside of the jar. That's fine. Get a little bit of oil, either sunflower oil or olive oil, and just wipe the outside of it with a cotton wool pad. This will remove the sticker nice and easily, so the outside of your jar is all clean and not sticky. You then need to decorate your jar. I've done 3 different jars to show you some possible options. As you can see, the first jar I haven't decorated. I've simply put fabric on the top using a hairband and tucked in the edges to give it a little hat. This is nice and simple but gives a decorative effect. The second jar I created using masking tape and coloured pens. I simply cut the masking tape into different shapes and decorated them using different patterns. The third jar was a little bit tricky. I had to wait for the paint to dry. I used furniture paint that I found in the garage I just used furniture paint or gloss to paint the base of my jar, and then I decorated it again with coloured pens. There are lots of different ways you could decorate your jar, and I'd love to see you being creative with using the stuff you've got around your home. Okay, now you need to fill your hope jars with your hopes. So collect some paper from around your house. I just found some coloured paper. And then you need to cut them into strips. On those strips, write clearly your hopes for what you want to happen when lockdown finally ends. As you can see, I've got a range of different hopes that I want to do with my friends and family when we're able to do it safely. Once you've written them, fold them up neatly and place them in your hope jar. And there you've got it, a finished hope jar full of things to do when lockdown finishes. Over to Miss Hanneke for challenge number 2, equally as creative.
Good morning. I have a new challenge for you all, a challenge that 9JV is sending out to the rest of the school. It's our new isolation song. So here it goes. Oh, isolation, more education, when I have school and chores and online homework too. It's with frustration, no relaxation, just looking forward to you seeing my hairdo. Your challenge is to write a rhyme-like explanation, or something that you can do on your PlayStation, or anything to do with the duration, or complication and demonstration, transformation and complication and demonstration and reparation, for stimulation, no suffocation until we're through. So isolation, more education, when I have school and chores and other homework too. It's with frustration, no relaxation, just looking forward to you seeing my hair do. Bye!
This is your final challenge from me today, and it's thanks to Miss Sparks, who wanted to get your brains working with some riddles. So here are 4 riddles. Have a think of what they could be. And of course, send your answers into the home learning email address. Good luck!
So, good morning Baycroft. I'm Mr. Bass. This morning we're going to look at the last Project Mercury spaceflight, which took place on this day, May the 15th, 1963. So, what was Project Mercury? It was the United States of America's National Aeronautic and Space Administration agencies, or as we know it better, NASA's program to, firstly, orbit a manned spacecraft around the Earth. Secondly, to investigate man's ability to function in space. And lastly, and very importantly, to return the man and the spacecraft back to Earth. Project Mercury ran from 1958 until the last flight, which was May the 15th, today, 1963. So why was it called Project Mercury? Well, it was named after the Roman god Mercury, who was very, very fast. Rocket, fast, kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And who were NASA? NASA was a brand new American government agency in 1959. And one of the agency's first jobs was to select the astronauts that would fly into space as part of Project Mercury. They selected 7, all men, and these were the very first astronauts from the United States of America. But the project didn't put a man into space straight away. If you remember, one of NASA's aims was to see how safe it was to put a man into space. and another of those aims was to get it back safely. So firstly, they sent a rhesus monkey named Sam into space in December 1959, followed by 2 more flights with chimpanzees on board. One chimpanzee named Ham, who went into space in January 1961, followed by Enos, who flew in November 1961. I am very happy to report all 3 animal astronauts returned safely. And looking at this picture, the chimpanzee even seems rather pleased about that. And importantly, from these flights with these animals, NASA learned it would be okay to put a human into space. So, what did the Mercury spacecraft look like? Well, it was a very small capsule with room for just 1 astronaut, and was designed especially just to orbit the Earth and return when the mission was complete. And here is a drawing of what the spacecraft looked like. So, all the testing was complete, and the first Mercury manned spaceflight was made by astronaut Alan Shepard in May 1961, which made him the very first American in space. The flight lasted 15 minutes, not very long at all, before returning to Earth. He named his Mercury space capsule Freedom 7. He'd added the 7 because it was the 7th capsule made, so they made sort of 6 prototypes and then his was the 7th. Some years later, in 1971, Alan Shepard walked on the moon, and he was the commander of Apollo 14 mission. So each astronaut who flew with Project Mercury named their space capsule and included the number 7, but they did that in honour of the first 7 astronauts. So, as an example, the second manned space flight by an American, Gus Grissom, great name, was in Liberty Bell 7. And we reached the 6th and final flight on May the 15th, 1963, which was flown by astronaut Gordon Cooper, who named his capsule Faith 7. You will note there were 7 astronauts, but only 6 flights. This is because Deke Slayton, another great American name, was unwell and couldn't fly. However, good news, he did get into space in 1975. So, that was a brief look at the American Project Mercury, which was aimed at getting the first American into space. Just a quick word about the space race. The period of the sort of 1950s and 1960s was also known as the space race, which was between America and Russia and who could be the first to get a man into space. I'm not going to say any more about that. It might give the game away for you earning those precious house points. What I want you to do is one, or probably more actually, of the following tasks. First, for our artists, let's see the very best space rocket you can draw. Loads of imagination. You can name the parts if you wish to. For those needing a bigger challenge, let's see if you can research and submit the answers to these 3 questions. A, who was the second person to walk on the moon? Who was the first man in space? What year and which country was he from? And who was the first woman in space? What year and which country was she from? And those that need a little more stretch and challenge, I want you to produce a mind map with the Earth at the centre and as many facts about space and space travel as you can. Facts, pictures. Pictures are good. Here's my very average example here. You can do loads better. And don't forget, send your work into the school email address going across the top, one way or the other. Anyway, Baycroft, you have a very good day and please stay safe.
Yesterday's sign was listen. Today's sign is help. Help.
Hi guys, me again, just back. That's it from us for today. Because we've had a short week, we're going to roll over this week's voucher to next week when, who knows, it may be a 2 voucher week. So please make sure you carry on working hard and sharing all of your outstanding work with us. So I'm going to sign off for the week, but before I do, I'd like to mention a very special birthday. Now, some of you may not know Mr. Petford very well yet because he hadn't been with us long before we all went on lockdown. So I'm going to fill you in a bit. He works in the school office, so he isn't a face we see very often, but along with the rest of the office team, I think it's fair to say that the school without them would be a bit like a car with no wheels, or a roof, or a car. So he's a really important part of the Baycroft community already, even though you won't know him too well and may not know his name too well yet. So, just to jog your memory, here he is on his holiday last year playing a game of Scottish catch with his kids, having a lovely time there. They make them tough up there, don't they? So please join me in wishing Mr. Petford a very, very happy birthday. Have a great weekend, everyone out there in Baycroft land. Stay safe, be kind to each other, particularly your parents and carers, and we'll see you next week.